Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X-Men Volume 2, number 40, cover dated January 1995. And as the cover caption makes plain, this is Legion Quest Part 2 of 4. And this is another eye-catching cover by Andy Kubert. I always like it when there's some play with the cover logo, as there is here. It reminds me of the Inferno era issues. And a very creepy image of Legion here on the cover, grinning menacingly. And I just love the detail of the splayed toes here. Imagine thinking of drawing that. I've never seen anything like that before by any other artist, and it's really effective. So the artist in question, of course, Andy Kubert, inked by Matthew Ryan. Let's open this one up to the first page. This is following on, of course, from issue 320 of Uncanny X-Men. And we have, and again, this is difficult to do, we have Professor X in a wheelchair. That's not unusual, and he's testing it out. Incredible. It feels lighter and definitely more maneuverable. And just imagine trying to illustrate that as Andy Kubert does here in the first 3 panels. That's difficult to do, but he gets motion. In the wheel there, we see the turning of the front wheel, and we even get that sense of feeling lighter with the way that his feet are resting on the footrests here. And this is difficult to draw in and of itself, a wheelchair of this order. And also, like we see here from the background, we're in some kind of hospital room. And who is he talking to? Who's his interlocutor? It just seems, Charles, that I've always had a way, turn the page, with things made out of metal. So it's Magneto. Or rather, as he is now, Eric Lenscher, or rather, as he was when Professor X first met him, all the way back in Uncanny X-Men 161 in Israel. Now, in the 1990s, it's 1970s, mid-70s Israel. He goes by the name Magnus. Magnus, since you are, since I first met you weeks ago, and remain to this day, a man of mystery. And as a visual comment on that mystery, I love the way that Kubert has the slats of the Venetian blinds, the silhouettes of them, crossing Magneto's face there. That's really, really nicely done. Great work. There is tremendous work by Andy Kubert in this issue. He was really on fire at this point of his work on X-Men. And so their conversation continues. They are in Haifa. Magnus is a volunteer orderly there, and Professor X is working he's specializing in acute mental disorders at the hospital. We're both at this hospital in Haifa for our own reasons. And Magnus says, I respect your right to privacy as I know you do mine. More so or less than our shared curiosities. Time will tell, won't it? Go see to your patients, Charles, while I empty some bedpans. But they're friends, and they're going to have dinner at 8 at Rab's. If Gabrielle is feeling up to it, I'll ask her to join us. So that's Gabrielle Haller, of course. And Magneto here, it's as if you read my mind. So there's a lot of play with the idea of Professor X not having revealed his power as a telepath, nor Magnus having revealed his power of having the ability to magnetically manipulate metals. So they have their dinner date agreed, dinner at 8 at Rab's. And this is a great detail of Magnus in silhouette here with the wheelchair. A lot of work on these pages, a lot of play with interesting angles like the top-down angle here. Difficult to do, but nicely done by Kubert. Yeah, so we're left with Magnus, and we get into his thoughts, and it's interesting. Charles is a good man. He thinks to himself, I should confide in him, but it's been so long since I felt I could trust anyone. I came here to escape the pain of my memories of what I am. Why is it that every time I look into that man's eyes, he makes me feel as though I'm guilty of something? Of what, though? You know the truth, Eric, he says to himself. Guilty of hiding, of running away from the responsibilities you bear because you're different. And whose bedpan is he going to empty, so to speak, except for this mysterious man looking out the window of the hospital? And when he turns around, he's a John Doe. He's lost his memories, but Even with the change of hairdo, we recognize that it's David Haller. He says he's looking to get a clue as to who he is and why he's there, and why is it that no matter how little he remembers of himself, he does know that he's quite tired of always finding himself wearing one of these silly hospital frocks, because, I mean, that is mostly how we do see Legion. But the scene shifts to the present, and the Negev desert in Israel, and the aftermath of the issue 320 of Uncanny X-Men, when Psylocke, Bishop, Iceman, and who else? Iceman, Psylocke, Bishop, and one other person who I can't remember just now, was taken into the past by Legion. And so here we've got Rogue and we've got Archangel in his old costume, angel costume, and they're searching for the X-Men in the desert, but also, and more particularly, Jean Grey, because she sent out a psychic distress signal to Professor X. And Warren's worried about Betsy, about Psylocke, because they've just started a relationship, which was made official in issue 319 of Uncanny X-Men. And here back in the HQ, there's a sandstorm going on at the same time. We've got the rest of the blue team there with Gambit, Cyclops, and Beast hanging upside down, as is his wont. I really like this little establishing shot of the Blackbird parked outside the tents in the middle of the sandstorm. The angle here, the up angle on the Blackbird, is really nice. And this is a nice shot of Cyclops as well, with the double lighting and rim lighting by colorist Kevin Summers. It looks really good. And let me I've just reminded myself, where is the... Oh, here we go. Must go through the credits for you as well. So the part 2 of Legion Quest, the writers Fabian Nicieza, Andy Kubert penciler, Matt Ryan inker, Bill Oakley letterer, and Kevin Summers colorist. So with this new glossy paper, the art just looks excellent, and the digital coloring is working well, complementing the line art too. It's not overpowering it or overwhelming it. It just looks excellent. So Warren's there, and he, with his acute vision, which is part of his mutant powers to fly, he spots Jean here, almost covered by drifting sand from the storm. And this is a great little panel where he lifts her unconscious body from the sand, and he says there's no sign of the others to Professor X, and Jean seems to be in some sort of shock. So the Professor tells Archangel to get her back to the medical tent, which he does, and Rogue's there too. This is a great anchor image on this page. Look at all the work that Kubert has put in here. So we've got Archangel, Gambit, we've got Cyclops now holding Jean in bed to place her on the bed. We've got Rogue there, and I pointed this out before, Kubert's new way of doing eyes. You can see it well there with Rogue. And I even like this little detail of the Beast hooking up an IV drip, an intravenous drip for Jean in order to get her rehydrated, because he makes the point that she's dehydrated and exhausted, but he thinks that she can stand a gentle mental probe. So Professor X does that, and Jean wakes up from her unconscious state, shouting out Legion's name. So Cyclops is there to hold his wife, and we've got the other persons present concerned for Jean. And she tells the story. This is a great panel here as well, a great anchor image. Look at the foreshortening from the hands up to Jean's face. That's difficult to do, and Kubert has done a really good job there. And you really get the sense that Jean is physically spent here in this rendering of her, the body language, the expression on her face. Really great work by Kubert. So she says how David's no longer a shattered schizophrenic shell of a man anymore. All the pieces were glued back together. He's become more than he was before, and there's no way of knowing now how many different abilities David Haller has, but they were enough to easily tear us apart. So Legion is a major threat. Professor X is very thoughtful here, and he's asking about the others. Oh yeah, Storm. is also there in the past with Legion. So Storm, Iceman, he took them with his new ability. And the professor asks, but where did he take them? So he's not prepared for this answer. Into the past, Charles, somewhere into your past. And so here we are again in the mid-70s in Israel, in Haifa. And here we have the 4 X-Men who were taken into the past. And what we learn from them is, from their dialogue here in their conversation, is that they're suffering a form of amnesia, whereby they've figured out their names and the fact that they formally know each other, that they've traveled back in time 20 years, but they don't know anything about their time with the X-Men. And so Bobby here presents them with the X symbol and says, I mean, we all woke up wearing those funky aerobic outfits that had those X's on them in one place or another. I mean, look at us, a British accent in an Asian body, a black woman with white hair. I mean, guys, that's not normal. This is a great vertical panel here, top-down shot of them walking down this alley. I love even the detail of the newspaper blowing around as well. A lot of work. Cafe Ben Rab. So Ben Rab was assistant editor on the X books at the time. Later on, he became the main editor. So that's interesting. A little in-joke there. And here, in the past, Iceman's power, he only has the most rudimentary command of it because he can't remember any of his training or any of his time in the X-Men. He demonstrates the power down an alley. Bishop is upset by that. He says, Robert, we're conspicuous enough as it is without your displays, but Iceman checked. Psylocke says here, it was a careless performance. We're different, Robert. There's no denying that. I can read your minds, and I know we all possess strange abilities, but it doesn't take much of a mind reaper to know we've precious little choice but to continue our struggle to learn the truth about how we came here. So shall we continue our discussion in a less obvious setting? And Psylocke sporting her new shorter hair, designed by Andy Kubert, looking good. And then we've got this really cool interlude. And it's back at the X Mansion. Everybody's away from it. So who's there in his room / cell except for Sabertooth? And he's working away on the computer system in order to break himself out. But he's caught by a defense grid shockwave. And he's surprised by an unexpected visitor. And it's this really cool double page half spread of Wolverine saying, Creed, whoever said Chuck left you here alone? And he's got his bone claws popped. We haven't seen Wolverine in the title since issue 25 when Magneto ripped the adamantium from his body. And then there was a little cameo appearance of him out in the woods where he gave Sabertooth a boot in issue 30, the wedding issue, when Scott and Jean got married. And here we have a promo footnote from Bob Harris. To see the rematch of the century, you have to pick up Wolverine number 90. And that is a really, really cool issue by Adam Kubert with Adam Kubert art, Larry Hama writing. I do have it and I will review it shortly, so stay tuned for that one. I love the detail even here on Sabertooth's fingers as well, and the knuckles and bones of his hand. It's really well done. Not so much the colouring on his fingernails though, his claws. That could be a bit better. But there you go, nothing's perfect, eh? And then we're back, Haifa in the past, and we've got our establishing shot there, the hospital too, and we've got Magneto thinking, Charles, what are you getting yourself into? You let the barriers between the doctor-patient relationship slip. So Gabrielle Haller is, or was, Professor X's patient, and now he started a romantic relationship with her, and of course that's a breach of the psychotherapist-patient ethics. So a little bit of a smudge on Charles's ethical reputation, let's say, and interesting to see Magnus or Magneto with a superior ethical perspective and maybe foreshadowing for the coming age of Apocalypse and the position he will have in that alternative universe. And I really like this shot by Andy Kubert, this top-down view. Like, this was something that was a speciality of Whilce Portacio back in the day. And just the device of having Magneto cast that shadow of costumed Magneto with the helmet there as well looks really, really good. Excellent work. And he wonders and thinks to himself, but who am I to criticize? Is it jealousy that he is Gabby and each night I got to sleep and dream of my lost beloved Magda? Why would I deny Charles a chance at happiness just because I refuse to dream of a better world? Again, interesting foreshadowing of Magneto's role in Age of Apocalypse, and a bit of a swerve for readers. So he's back with John Doe, but it is David Haller, and he's helping up out of his bed. And then David picks up on Magnus's trauma from his time in Auschwitz, the concentration camps. And there's some imagery here that Kubert is drawing that he's done before that picks up on imagery from issue 161 of Uncanny X-Men, as well as Jim Lee's issue 275. So we have this montage of Magneto's time in the camps and the brutality of the Nazis. And this has caught David by surprise. He says here, the camps, the deaths of all you held dear, how could you face it? How did you wake up in the morning to face yet another day among the dying when there is such a screaming emptiness inside of you? So Magnus says, stop it here. And David is catching the memory of the backup story in Classic X-Men number 11, when Magneto's daughter died, burned by people who feared you. That was in Ukraine. Your wife ran away when she saw you, saw what you could do. So Magnus says here, stop this. He's getting angry now. And look at this for an anchor image. Look at the action in this as everything goes flying in the room, because of course he's using his mutant powers here, and all the metallic objects are flying. So it's a moment of great trauma. What in the name of God are you? What are you doing? Who are you to remind me of all that I've lost? Animal, he calls him, as he runs out the door and runs out of the hospital entirely, thinking to himself, never felt anything like that. He got deep into my soul, tore it apart. I need help, well, who does he need? Charles. This is a great page too. I love the background detail of the guys here buying the eggs. They've got their basket of eggs, and we've got Professor X and Gabrielle Haller, and they're walking in the street, and Psylocke passes them, passes between them, and Professor X wonders, catches something about her, that girl, because of course Psylocke has telepathic abilities, and he's lost in thought there. So Gabrielle asks him, did you say something? Look, Psylocke catches a psi flash as well, and she turns around. Charles, I know your mind tends to wander sometimes, but Charles, and of course, remember, the X-Men in the past are amnesiac regarding their time in the X-Men. So she's not going to recognize young Charles Xavier, although there is a slight recognition there. And he thinks to himself, I did hear something telepathically but vague, as if through a haze of interference. So he thinks Magnus. And there he is. He's coming. He called out to me. So this is interesting. Like, he's realizing that his friend has some ability to make telepathic contact, and or that there's a rapport developing between them, which is interesting. But Magnus is in a state of alarm. He says he's in need of Professor X, one of the patients, that strange boy we found on the docks. He's demonstrated some very dramatic symptoms. It's a possible result, I think, of that rare genetic quirk we've been discussing. But you have to stop him. I mean, help him. That's interesting, the way that he corrects himself there. And it kind of highlights the different attitudes between the pair of them. And even something as simple as the way that Kubert has drawn Professor X's head here, and the rendering of the surface of his bald head, like the lines of the bone, the skull beneath the skin, looks really good. It's so nuanced. But the man has such a command now at this point of human anatomy that it looks effortless and it's so impressive. So anyway, Professor X says to Magnus that he's got to calm down, he's too excited, we'll go see the boy right away. And you know, it's so interesting that Legion ended up in the past at a point when he hadn't been conceived yet. So, you know, he's interacting with his father even before his own conception. And we turn over the page and we have this dramatic view of Legion with his pyrokinetic abilities and telepathic psychic abilities all blending and combining as his powers are flaring. And we get these images in the flames of various X-Men. Looks like Wolverine, Cyclops and Jean, of course. Very interesting stuff, and maybe Psylocke here. And so Magnus makes the point he's creating these projections out of thin air. Just how powerful can he be? So Professor X here shielding himself without even needing to read his friend's mind, that's Magneto's mind. He knows their thoughts mirror each other's as they wonder, who is this person and what have they gotten themselves into? And then we're back in the present, and this is a really cool moment. So we've got the mostly the blue team there with Archangel. We've got the Israeli Defense Forces and the PLO guys in the background there. And we have the arrival of this really cool craft. And it turns out it is Cable and Domino from the pages of X-Force and Cable's own solo series at this time. And so Cable greets Cyclops, hi Pop. That's very interesting because at this point now, everybody knows that Cyclops' son, Nathan Christopher, is Cable. They know it now. So Cable's come on Professor X's call and he asks the professor, now could you explain why Domino and I are here? Very cool anchor image by Andy Kubert. Just 3 panels on this page. Interesting. But big images, cool artwork. So the reason that Professor X is called Cable in particular is because of the time traveling threat. So he says here, only for the most dire and unexpected of reasons, Cable. The X-Men are once more in need of your aid. Storm, Bishop, Psylocke and Iceman were apparently sucked into some sort of temporal vortex while battling my son David. And so Cable fills in why he's there. And as the resident time traveler, you want me to go get them. But there's a problem, he says. Well, it's coming up. He says it here, sorry. Would that I could, but my time displacement core has been out of commission for a while now. And that goes back to X-Force number 22. Unless you know anyone who can drag up a few hundred tons of machinery from the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. And that, of course, would have been Magneto. But Magneto is mind-wiped on Asteroid M. Not Asteroid M, but its successor, Avalon. So here, another great image of Cable and Domino as the IDF pull their guns on them, and this is because the Colonel recognizes Cable, or General rather, recognizes Cable and says this mercenary is wanted for crimes against the state of Israel. But Cable makes the point, you've got me wrong, you're thinking of a creep who looked like me, actually he was my clone, it's a long story, trust me. So that's Strife, of course. So they're debating here about Cable and Domino are debating about like how they might get out of this one. And Domino makes the point, we're wanted in so many countries it's kind of hard to keep track whether they actually are wanted in Israel for actions of their own. And then look at this, we've got to turn the 2-page spread here to the side. We have the unexpected interruption of the scene by the arrival of a holographic communication from Lilandra, Magistrix of the Shi'ar Empire. There's great work on this page too. I love the silhouetting and hatching on Cable here. It's very cool. Also the spotting of blacks here in this particular panel of the blue team. Very cool. Again, that thing with Rogue's eyes as well. Interesting from this era of Andy Kubert. And then, of course, our central anchor image of Lilandra. And she says, I apologize for the excessive theatrics, Charles, but massive energies were required to establish this contact. The Macran crystal grows angrily, and communications between our worlds have been severely disrupted. So, Professor asks the obvious question, by what Lilandra? How can Legion's actions, wherever he is in the past, be causing interstellar problems in the present? How can you know any of this? It's a great image here. I love the rendering here, and just the shape, this kind of flat forehead shape of Beast here, and the spotting of blacks, and the rendering of the shadows. Matt Ryan's inks just look excellent on this page, and the digital coloring works well with the new glossy paper, because we're getting kind of like a fading out of the, or rather we're getting a colored line for Lilandra here for the holographic effect, and it works well on the glossy paper. But in any case, we've got a dramatic page turn here, something very unexpected, and I do remember this page turn back reading this originally almost 30 years ago. Here we go. Turn the page, full page panel, and wow, look at that. Lilandra finishes the point. Shall we say simply, my soulmate, that it would be best for us to listen when the whispered words of warning come straight from the mouths of the watchers. So look at this. We don't just have Uatu there, we've got 7 watchers right behind Lilandra. That's a tremendous page. Great spotting of blacks, great use of shadow, great hatching on the page, just great composition with the Shi'ar guards here. Wonderful work by Andy Kubert, and what a cliffhanger for part 3 of Legion Quest, which will be continued in Uncanny X-Men 321. So I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on X-Men number 40. This really kicks into high gear the Legion Quest storyline, the prologue to Age of Apocalypse. If you enjoyed this video, please like it on YouTube, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.